Hello and welcome to the GRADD Dialogue. This month, I have a guest that if you ask any elected official in the 7 counties, especially the county judges, and even legislators too, they will tell you that there is no better person to work in the state government than Kevin McClearn. When it comes to the highway projects and knowledge about what we need at the local level when you talk about roads, bridges, and everything else. So Kevin is our guest. Kevin, welcome on the GRADD Dialogue, and I'm surprised that this many years you've been with the state that you have not been on this show, but I'm so glad that this is the time. For those of you who may not know, he's a licensed professional engineer and has been the chief district highway engineer for I think District 2. Mm-hmm. That covers quite a few counties. I believe all the 7 counties on GRADD is part of his district. He has over 330 employees. You look too young to have that many people working under you. Yeah. And also, which surprisingly, that he and his staff has to more or less maintain and manage and plan and do everything else for almost 3,300 vehicle miles. Right. Mm-hmm. And then quite a few bridges and everything else that goes with the transportation system. Kevin, I've known you before you became the highway engineer. Mm-hmm. I always enjoyed working with you, and so does my staff. In fact, today you spoke to the GRADD board, and all the judges are so happy that you could make it to the GRADD board and presentation. So again, welcome, and let's start out with. We just got a new budget approved by the legislators and then signed by the governor. And one of the biggest items that that you had to worry about, and we all have to worry about as well, is a 6-year highway plan. Right. So kind of make some comments on that, and what is how does it impact this year's budget, and some of the major impact we will see in our district.
You're right, Jatin, and thank you. I'm glad to be here. The 6-year plan, or the highway plan is what it's called now, is out because it was a part of a budget year with the legislators. So we have that. It's not been bound and put out yet, but it is in the process of that. So we've seen it. We've taken a look at some of the projects and project schedules. One thing that is a little unique about this year is our state-funded projects. Typically, there's 2 types of funding: federal, state. Federal, okay. State, we're running a little bit behind, mostly because of the gas tax. Obviously, when the gas has dropped locally or around the nation, here in Kentucky, it's indexed. Our gas, what we get our funding from, is indexed to the price of gas. As gas goes down, our funding goes down. And so it dropped over 6.5 cents. So 6.5 cents per gallon from a year and a half ago is a significant drop in state funds. So a lot of our state-funded projects, some of which we may mention today, but many more than that, are going to suffer from delayed schedule movement. For example, if it's ready for right-of-way funds, we're going to have to let it set. If it's ready for utility funds, we may have to let it set. If it's ready for letting to construction, we may have to let it set.
Now, Kevin, you mentioned that the funding for the roads and everything comes from the federal and state. Mm-hmm. Now, the federal is, I guess, mainly what the Congress appropriates nationally, and then formula-wise what comes to Kentucky and everything else.
Yeah, it's set, and it is a formula, and Kentucky does pretty well. I believe it's in the 90% range of every dollar that we put in. We get 90-something% back. So that is determined federally, yeah.
And the statewide is the gas tax. Any other funds goes into the road highway fund?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So we're a little bit different than other state employees. So we're funded with the gas tax. And
so when the gas prices is higher, you guys get more money as a consumer, pay more at the gas pump.
Correct.
But when it goes down, good for the consumer, but the bad for and then so what happens? How do you manage all the fluctuations? And is there any solution to that?
Well, as it was dropping and dropping, the legislators did step in a year or so ago and set a floor, meaning as the price dropped, it's going to hit that floor and it can't go below it.
I see.
So we're regulated and we can't go below. I believe it's 26 cents a gallon. But it used to be 32.5 cents, so that's a 6.5 cent drop per gallon. So it won't go any lower than that. And then if the price of gas goes up, obviously
get
our
additional funding.
funding will go up, but it can only go up by law a certain
see.
percent. So it can only take baby incremental steps going back up. So we're going to be in a funding lull for a couple of years or more.
So so we got the funding side more or less discussed. How do you decide which project to fund? You know, some gonna say, gosh, you know, they call GRADD office and call City Hall saying, 54, my gosh, I would never leave on 54. Something got to be done and all those things, and you know, send your crew to do the traffic studies and everything else. And nothing happens. Whatever happens, how do you prioritize? How do you decide on funding?
Well, that's a good question. How do we decide on funding if we've got several competing or several ready to move?
Right.
We depend on Frankfurt, that process to let us know what's important and what's not. We do get some say-so as far as what's more critical, what's a more critical need, and usually those can dictate and move a little bit more forward, which impacts more people. Those can move forward if only a few, if you have to prioritize. So some prioritization happens in Frankfurt from the administration, and some would happen on from our level on talking with ad directors and legislative officials on what is most important to move forward. So yeah, there is a prioritization.
So you know, traditionally Kentucky was known in the past, notorious about the highway funds and the road funds and everything else, but now you have a systematic way. You know, I think we were told that in order for any project to go through the funding cycle, has to go through the different levels of studies and prioritization.
Yeah, a lot of what the Green River Area Development District does for us is prioritize, but the legislators will come in and look at what is the most important. But they're able to look at this GRADD information and from the other ads across the state and MPOs as well, and see how did the locals rank these projects. So there's some project history there that helps pick what goes on the 6-year plan. And so a legislator would come in and see what is important to the ad area, to the region, to the county, and then they're the ones that actually pick it out and put it in the highway plan. So that is the main force of prioritization, is that way. When it's in the plan, that's our law, we're going to build it if it's got good funding. But if it doesn't have good funding, then a secondary prioritization has to happen on, well, which is more important than the other.
And you mentioned MPO. That's
right.
In the urban area like Owensboro and Davis County has a different process than maybe, let's say,
it's a
Hancock
similar process.
Okay.
But the MPO area, which would be Davis County and Owensboro, they rank their projects looking at themselves. And then the rural counties, which would be 5 of your counties, would Jenna Boaz's committee would rank those. Of course, Henderson is part of an MPO with Evansville. Okay. And so they look at in your area, there'd be 3 different lists of prioritizations.
Kevin, we started talking about this, you know, you are in District 2. So the whole state is divided into
12 districts.
12 districts, okay. And how many counties do you have?
11.
11. Besides 7 here, you got 4 more counties.
4 more counties to the south of here, right.
So do you don't get this pot of money and then it's okay,
no.
Haven't you decide how much Davis County gets or anything? You know?
Correct. No, we don't do that.
Okay.
The highway plan is what kind of divvies that out. And when we get the highway plan, which is from the legislature, that's what it has schedules and funding and years associated with projects, and we try our best to follow that schedule.
It's also good to point out that just because the project is in the 6-year highway plan does not mean that it's going to be done in 6 years, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. It could be some are quicker, but gosh, it does take a long time to do all the appropriate steps, buy the property, deal with property owners, the government regulations, the planning, everything that goes in is quite cumbersome. So on a larger project, it can take more than 6 years.
You know, people watching this show, they always they have seen your name in the paper almost every month after the technical advisory committee of the MPO when you give a report. But so it's not just something that you and the mayor or the judge decide what needs to be done. There are a lot of people involved with that, some professionals and everything.
Right. Yeah, and then like I said, the ones that make up your technical advisory committee for Owensboro MPO are a lot of your leaders, police, and other agencies, transit,
Right,
airport, etc., Riverport are all represented. They're very engaged, and they talk about the needs. Your city and county engineer are there. Other elected officials are there. County commissioners are there, and we just go back and forth talking about which project is more important to than another, and you have to rank them one on down. And it's not necessarily that those get into the highway plan, but it does help. It's a great planning process so that the legislators can swoop in, and instead of just being arbitrary, they have a fact-based list that makes sense and they can pull off the top.
You know, people see a lot of headlines on the major priorities. You know, it could be a roundabout, it could be a, you know, Natural Parkway or Highway 54 or Frederick Street, but your staff are all working on ongoing issues too. So can you comment on that? You know, when we see the highway truck on the road, so they're not only working on those new projects, they're also working on maintaining different things?
Yeah, we have a county crew in every county in the state, 120, so I deal with 11 county crews, and they deal with making the roads safe every day for the traveling public. So they're out there filling potholes and doing ditching and working on flooding issues, and if there's an accident in the middle of the night or if there's a tree down in the middle of the night, obviously snow and ice, they're the ones that react. They're pretty much on call 24/7 so that the roads are as safe as they can be. So there's a heavy maintenance function that's involved with what we do. Our 330 to 350 employees, a lot of it, yes, is the new projects and the planning and managing, but a whole lot of it is the maintaining the system that we've already got and repaving and inspecting the contractors, setting speed limits, signal timing, permit for a commercial business coming in. Can I put an entrance here? No, you can't. Can I put it here? Yes, you can't. You know, we look at site distance and what is safe. So there's a whole lot of it that goes into the highway department.
You know, in the time that we have left, let's comment on, you know, some of the new project that is in the highway plan that would affect Owensboro and Davis County, and also maybe comment or two about the roundabout that's you know, has been very successful so far.
Okay, well, the one project I guess that impacts perhaps the most Owensboro, Davis County, and more is the 54 development. And that project is a sizable project that we've got in a consultant's hands, and it's being designed. It goes from the bypass, 54 in the bypass, out to Jack Hinton Road.
I see.
Several miles outside of the bypass area. So some of that will be a 7-lane section. Some of it will maintain a 5-lane. Some of it will be a 3-lane improved section, and then the remainder out to Jack Hinton will be what we call a Super 2 with wide shoulders and that sort of thing. We're finishing up design. We're getting close to needing to get into the right-of-way phase. It's a state-funded project, so it is going to be affected by the lack of funds. So we're not able to get the right-of-way funding yet, and I can't guarantee when that will happen. It may be a year. But when we do get the funding for that, there are about probably 250 parcels on that project. It may take a couple of years to get a contract buyer and do the appraisals, project report, and everything else that goes on. So we're unfortunately a handful of years before we see construction happening there.
What about the Natural Parkway to become the I-65 spur? I know that's been a very important.
The Natural Parkway, of course, we completed a study through a consultant about a year and a half ago to see what it would take. We've done it before on the Pennyroyal and the WK, changing it into Interstate 69. The idea is, what can we do? What does the Natural need to bring it up to an interstate standard, perhaps off of I-65 and then up to Owensboro? So we've done the study, and then it did make it into this year's highway plan. 2 projects, 10 million in one, 11 million in another. I don't believe that will do the whole corridor, but at least it will get us started and hopefully start getting projects designed where we can start making steps on getting the Natural to be an interstate.
Kevin, I would remiss not to mention that you know, after you know, spending all your career in the highway department and majority of them in District 2 and helping the GRADD 7 counties, you're retiring.
Right.
We wish you best of luck. You're too young to retire, and hopefully, you know, I think you mentioned that you're going to stay around in this community and maybe help us out again. I want to thank you to be on the GRADD dialogue, but more importantly, to be our district highway engineer.
Well, you're welcome.
And
it's been a joy.
Tremendous part, and also your staff. You know, Nick
Yes,
Hall,
absolutely.
used to be at GRADD. He's a great employee as well. So we've been talking to Kevin McClearn about the highway projects, 6-year highway plan, as well as some of the projects in Davis County. If you have any specific questions on different projects, you can always call us at the GRADD office. You can also go on the GRADD website. You can look at the 6-year highway plan, and I'll also look at the different projects. More importantly, you can always participate in the TAC meeting at the Mesa City Hall, and you can look at the GRADD for the schedule, and be active and figure out what can we do as a community to make the better transportation, safer transportation in our region and also in Davis County. Thank you very much. Hello, welcome to the GRADD Dialogue. This month my guest is Mr. Robert Berry. He's a CEO of the Big Rivers Corporation. And he became CEO and Chief Executive Officer in 2014. And Bob, he's a veteran of the utility industry for almost 33 years. And I think was Big Rivers before and then left and came back. And I think you came back in 2009, you said, came back to Big Rivers. He has a very, very extensive experience in electric utility by serving as in a multitude of key roles, including plant and transmission systems, operations, fuel procurement, environmental compliance, along with the MISO, reliability and energy market functions. Mr. Berry is an active board member of the Kentucky Association of Electric Co-op, very good position, National Renewable Co-op organizations, also on the ACES Power Marketing. And I think some of the key community positions that you hold, which is so good for us, for our region, he's serving on the Greater Owensboro Economic Development Corporation Board, GO-EDC Board, also the Henderson Community College Foundation Board, and a member of the Madisonville Community and Technical College Engineering Advisory Committee. He's a lifelong resident of Davis County. Again, this first time on GRADD Dialogue, and Bob, lives in Summit here, and I guess avid golfer. He live in a Summit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Bob, again, welcome. You made a presentation this morning at the GRADD Board of Directors, talking about the Big Rivers. And I think in the last couple of years or so, we had probably Big River CEO, previous CEO anyway, a couple of times, and now you came in now. The whole discussion and environment is changed. Thanks to you, I think Big Rivers has gone to, some changes. At the same time, the whole, power industry has gone some changes and everything else again. Well, welcome to the GRADD Dialogue, and also maybe for the viewers, can you give us an overview about the Big Rivers Corporation, how it stands now, and what are some of the major projects going on?
Well, as you know, Jiten, from the presentation this morning, Big Rivers is a not-for-profit generation transmission company. We're owned by our 3-member distribution co-ops. The 3 co-ops that own us is Jackson Purchase, Kenergy here in Henderson, Kentucky, and then Meade County RECC in Brandenburg. So there are 3 owners, and Big Rivers, as being a cooperative, we don't have shareholders. Our shareholders are the actual end customer, the user. So Big Rivers, as you well know, many years ago or a few years ago, the aluminum smelters left the Big River system. Right. And so we put a mitigation plan together to help make sure that Big Rivers were very sustainable and a financially viable company. And we also put the mitigation plan together to help to maintain and control the cost to our members.
So the whole transition, from the smelters closing down and everything else, and I think actually just recently one closed down, but even they were on at that time and having a open market contract and everything. All the thing has been settled down to the point now Big Rivers is, stronger as ever, and maybe making plans for economic development and everything else.
We're much stronger than ever. And I think we came up with a really good mix. The smelter, we were able to negotiate a contract to keep the smelters viable, and they need to be viable for this community. But it also gave Big Rivers an opportunity to replace them as a customer with other customers. And so we've gotten beyond that, and we're having a lot of success replacing the smelters, and we're replacing that power with other entities across the state. We've put a very aggressive economic development incentive plan together.
Now, Bob, Big Rivers, you mentioned that there are serving 3 co-ops. right? The three?
Yes, three.
And so how many customers, how many counties? Can you kind of give us some numbers on those?
Yes, actually, the three distribution co-ops serve about 115,000 customers across 22 counties in western Kentucky. We were about, if you looked at our service territory, we're about 2 to 3 counties south of the Ohio River, from as far west as Paducah to as far east as Brandenburg, just outside of Louisville.
And all the generating facilities are in GRADD region?
Yes, they are. We basically have generators in 4 counties. We have them in Webster County, Henderson County, Hancock County, and Ohio County. So it's typically in the GRADD region.
I know that the one in Hancock County, you know, that's the one is idle right now, and that could have been because of that whole issue about the smelters and powers and everything else. So overall, what is the capacity of the production, and then what do you see as the future brings in? You know?
Well, if Big Rivers has, we own about 1,444 megawatts of generation.
That's pretty big.
We have an additional 375 megawatts that we have rights to. We have rights through an operating agreement with the Henderson Municipal Power and Light for 197 megawatts out of their station. And then we also have 178 megawatts of hydropower out of the Southeastern Power Administration. We refer to that as SEPA. So we do have a little bit of a mix in our generation portfolio, and that equates to a total of about 1,800 megawatts total.
Wow. Now, you know, and you mentioned earlier at the board meeting, and also looking at some of the other utility companies in our region that are facing right now. And I think somebody asked a question to you as far as what portion of the cost in power generation is the environmental cost, you know. And I know the OMU having some issue the same way too. So tell us, the audience, you know, they don't realize that, you know, when they turn the switch on, you know, it's not all the money that goes to the Big Rivers, but there's the portion of that as that you got to meet the environmental quality and air quality standards and all those things. You know.
Right. Big Rivers, at Big Rivers, it's about 25% of our total cost is just strictly from an environmental perspective. Wow. We've invested somewhere in about the $300 to $500 million in environmental upgrades over the last decade. So we're trying to be environmentally conscious, environmentally friendly. But the wave of regulations just keep coming.
The national policies, you know, this is always, you know, outside Kentucky, coal is a dirty word, you know, and then, you know, you guys are competing with the gas generation, gas-fired power plants, and then you put a mix into the solar energy and wind energy and renewables and all those things. So, I mean, sounds great, but, you know, and for a customer, you know, can you simplify, you know, all of that means? And, you know, I mean, are we not going to have electric power, or are we going to have something else instead? You know, what's the long-term prediction about the whole issue?
Well, I think on the long term, you're going to see a very diverse portfolio. I think you're going to see a portion of coal. It'll be a portion of natural gas, and there'll be some renewables involved as well. While outside of the state of Kentucky, coal may sound like a dirty word, but quite honestly, it's done well for the state of Kentucky. The state of Kentucky has about 50% of all the electricity usage in the state of Kentucky goes to industrial customers. Oh. And those industrial customers are here because of the low-cost energy that not only Big Rivers provides, but all the utilities in the state provide, and it's all predominantly coal-fired generation. And so they're here because of the coal, and that's why a lot of industry is in our state.
Now, you know, you mentioned earlier in the discussion that some of the mitigation plan that you have put together, you know, in the end, it provides a benefit to the end user, which are the customers. So really, customers may not see a reduction in bill or so, but they see some of the benefits that come inside. I have to kind of explain how some of the action you guys would take would benefit the users and the customers as well. You know?
Well, what's happened is with the uncommitted generation that we now have that's been freed up because of the smelter's departure, we're selling that energy and capacity to other customers. We're trying to expand existing businesses, bring new loads and new businesses in, which is where our economic development incentive rate came from. And then we're also selling to entities outside the state of Kentucky. And what's so important about that is that the more energy that we can sell of that 850 megawatts that's been freed up by the smelters, the money we make off of that, we are able to use that money to lower the member rates here in our area. So we're making our money off of those customers outside of the state, maybe to help the people inside the state.
Now you mentioned that you are very aggressive in economic development side of it, and I guess we always have enjoyed this part of the Kentucky being a low power cost, attracting industries and everything else. So how is the competition now? How do you enter in this whole global competition about jobs and everything else?
Well, Kentucky is probably around the somewhere in between the 1 to the 3rd lowest state in the country as far as power prices. And our economic incentive rate has made our region here in the GRADD region probably the most aggressive and the most effective economic development rate that's in the Commonwealth today. So it should give us a distinct advantage. We've seen some success there. The first industry that took advantage of this economic incentive rate was the Alaris expansion up in Hancock County. I think they invested about $400 million, a lot of very good high-paying jobs. And what their officials have told us is our economic incentive rate is what really triggered them to do that expansion here at Hancock County rather than at one of the other facilities in some other state.
So what are the future challenges you guys are facing? I know you mentioned the term was it a coal plan or something?
Well, I mean, the challenges that we're going to have in the future, Jatien, is really going to be environmental challenges.
I see. Okay.
We just have a wave of environmental regulations that continue to come down the pike. Although Big Rivers is positioned much better than most utilities from an environmental perspective. An example of that is our Coleman facility. It's currently compliant with all the environmental regulations that are currently in place and the ones that are proposed, with the exception of the Clean Power Plan. And the Clean Power Plan is really going to be more of a statewide program, not an individual plant program like we've seen in the past.
So, but the Clean Power Plan could have a detrimental impact not only for existing industries in Kentucky, and also maybe we could even lose some of the businesses in here, if with the cost involved in the power cost and everything else.
Well, I think our concern with the Clean Power Plan is it's going to increase electric cost, and when it increases electric cost, it's going to affect the industrial customers the most. And then, of course, there's a domino effect when if the industrial customers decide to leave the area, then it also affects the residential customers, and it's just a domino effect. We do think if power prices go up significantly that you could lose some industry. And Kentucky is not going to lose industry to other states because the state as a whole is still very, very competitive. What we expect to happen is that those people will not only move out of the state, but they'll move out of the country.
Oh, okay.
And that's our big concern of increasing rates so quickly.
So people don't realize not only that you guys are providing the power to the residents, thousands of residents in the 22 counties, but also industrial development, economic development. And I think one thing we didn't even talk about that, the side benefit that, the coal mining, you're still using a tremendous amount of coal for the generating facility that supports quite a few counties and the families and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, we bring a lot of significant economic impact to this community. We spend about $422 million a year in the surrounding counties. And that's just direct jobs. We have 540 direct jobs, but many, many more indirect jobs, specifically in the coal mining industry. We purchased last year 3.3 million tons of coal.
Wow.
3 million tons of that 3.3 came right here in Western Kentucky, probably within a 3-county area where we are today.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, I want to wish you best of luck on those. And I know that the challenges are you guys are facing, but I think, like you said, the Big River is probably in a better position than any other, co-op, the big, utility companies, to face those challenges and everything else, so, yeah.
We're positioned very well, and I think Big Rivers is in probably the best position that it's been since my career, which I began with Big Rivers in 1981. So we're in great shape. We've got a very dedicated workforce, which is such a benefit to us. The workforce in this area is just tremendous, and that's our biggest asset.
Well, we are honored to have you as our CEO, the Big Rivers, because we know that the economic development is the name of the game. Without that, we cannot grow, we cannot have any of the services as the way it should be, as the challenges we face in the future. So I want to thank you. Best of luck with the Big Rivers, and hopefully, we will see more and more economic development activities in all 22 counties, and would be great for the future.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on the show today.
Thank you very much. We've been talking to Bob Berry, CEO of Big Rivers. That a lot of things are happening in the Big Rivers that are really, really positive in a sense that they are making strides in economic development, trying to sell the power at the same time, attracting existing and new industries in our region. So, and if you have any questions about the Big River, this is the new day, for the customers as well as the Big Rivers Corporation. You can always contact Bob at the Big Rivers office, or you can call me at the GRADD office at 926-4433. Thank you very much.